The grinding roar of bulldozer tracks at 2 a.m. tore through the quiet, headlights slashing across the heirloom apple orchard like searchlights. Sophia Vance woke with her heart already hammering, the vibration of heavy machinery humming through the floorboards of the old farmhouse.
That's not a storm. That's diesel. That's destruction coming for my trees.
She didn't grab shoes, didn't grab a coat. She just ran, bare feet, slapping cold earth. A yellow bulldozer arm rammed into a 60-year-old heirloom apple tree. The trunk didn't crack, it shattered, spraying wood like shrapnel.
Stop. Stop. Right now. Those are my trees.
A man in a dark suit stood beside the lead bulldozer, his face lit by the floodlights, watching her like she was a minor inconvenience. The survey says it's our half-acre. Keep going.
He's lying. That land has been in my family for generations.
By dawn, the machines were gone. Sophia knelt in the mud, the wreckage of her great-grandmother's orchard, stretching around her like a battlefield. The sun had barely touched the tree line when Sophia rose from the mud and began picking through the wreckage. Among the broken branches, a survey stake caught her eye. Frayed ribbon, black marker, property line.
This isn't right. The line is 30 feet inside my land. He moved it.
4 months ago, Richard had sat at her kitchen table, sliding a check for half the land's value. She'd refused. Last month, survey crews crept onto the property while she was in town, staking the line without a word. Now, with cold fingers, she opened the wall safe and pulled out what they'd never known existed. A thick, folded deed, parchment yellowed, red wax seal pressed with the Vance family crest, dated 3 years prior. She spread the document on the table, tracing a boundary line that didn't match any stake Richard's men had planted.
He didn't just destroy my orchard. He destroyed his own.
The map told a story he'd never read. Half an acre of his land had been hers for 3 years. 3 years earlier, Richard's development company had defaulted on a road easement payment to the Vance family.
Miss Vance, his default gives us leverage. We can claim a section of his land as compensation.
What section? The strip along the creek?
Exactly. Half an acre. We'll write it into a new deed and file it.
The agreement was drafted that same week. Sophia signed with a steady hand, knowing she was protecting her orchard's boundary forever. The adjusted deed was recorded at the county courthouse, stamped and sealed, binding in every court.
No one can touch that land now, Sophia.
This is my buffer. If Richard ever tries to encroach, he'll destroy his own property.
3 years later, under the cold morning light, that half-acre lay in ruins, and it was all Richard's. And the line on that map, recorded years earlier, was now the difference between ruin and retribution. Sophia lifted the phone and dialed the only number that could turn this quiet morning into a reckoning.
Sophia, I saw the news. Please tell me you were insured.
Elena, listen. Remember the easement agreement we negotiated 3 years ago? Was there any penalty clause?
There was a clause I insisted on. For unauthorized destruction, the default triggers a transfer of the grantor's entire remaining parcel.
Wait. So the clause gives me all 40 acres of his development land?
Exactly. With proof of unauthorized destruction, you can claim every square inch.
Sophia's mind flashed to the trail camera, hidden in the old oak, motion activated, facing the orchard. She pulled up the footage. Time-stamped 2:13 a.m. A bulldozer pushing through the very trees now shattered.
2 cameras, 2 angles, and the sound of his voice giving the order.
She folded the deed into her cardigan, grabbed the county map, and headed for the door. Sophia's car pulled up to the site, the bulldozer still idling, Richard and his crew standing in a tense hush. "I was expecting a call from your lawyer, not you." She walked past him without a glance, stopped at the muddy line where the trees had been, and unfolded the parchment.
This is the legal deed to this half-acre, recorded 3 years ago. Care to see the original survey?
Richard snatched the parchment from her hand, his eyes darting across the notarized lines. This is my property line. It says the half-acre was transferred to you. That's impossible.
3 years ago, you defaulted on the easement. We took land instead of cash, and last night, your bulldozer destroyed your own property.
The foreman's coffee cup froze midair. The crew exchanged bewildered glances. This is a misunderstanding. I'll write you a check right now, double the offer.
We're past checks, Richard. I'll be seeking full damages.
Within 48 hours, Richard had hired a high-priced city lawyer known for demolishing small landowners in court. The lawyer's first move was a call to Elena, claiming the deed was fraudulent, demanding an immediate settlement.
His case is based on a survey they already admitted was wrong. The deed stands on its own.
And if he pushes, we have more than just the deed. We have the trail cam and the recorded calls.
The local paper ran the story on page 3. Midnight bulldozer destruction, a disputed boundary, and a single woman's fight. I've contributed to your campaign, Bob. Find a discrepancy in that deed.
That footage shows him giving the order. No jury will ignore it.
She also had recorded phone conversations from months earlier, where Richard acknowledged the easement default.
We'll submit the recordings and photographs tomorrow. He's providing the rope for his own hanging.
Richard's lawyer filed an emergency motion to void the deed, claiming fraud. But Sophia's evidence was already with the court. The newspaper headline still burned. Developer bulldozes own land. That afternoon, Richard came to her door. Sophia, I am not here to fight. I have a check that will cover 3 times the orchard's value.
There's no amount of money that replaces a 6-year labor of love. Save your paper.
She didn't raise her voice. Instead, she slid the easement agreement across the table.
Paragraph 8. Richard, read it. This is what you agreed to when you defaulted on the easement.
Transfer of the entire parcel upon unauthorized destruction? I never agreed to this. It's not enforceable. But the clause had been drafted by Elena's firm, recorded at the courthouse, and waited for exactly this moment. My legal team will tie this up in court for years. You'll regret ever filing this.
You have 48 hours to execute the transfer. After that, I file the trail cam and recordings with the court.
The courthouse was expecting them at 9 a.m., and Richard knew for the first time that he had been outmaneuvered. That afternoon, a new legal team from the capital arrived at the courthouse, armed with arguments of unconscionability and procedural defects. Their first target was the county recorder, insisting the old deed adjustment was a clerical error, filed under false pretenses. Elena produced the original notarized deeds from the courthouse archives, ending that challenge in minutes. The newspaper captured the split, folk hero to some, gold digger to others. Comments flooding their website and letter pages. She's exploiting a technicality to destroy a 10-year project. I am the victim here, not the aggressor. Then the newspaper printed a still from the trail cam footage, Richard's arm raised, giving the demolition signal. That recording is illegal. I'll sue for invasion of privacy and defamation. Sophia remained silent, letting the evidence speak. She had already submitted everything to the court. With 12 hours left, Richard's lawyer scrambled for a loophole that didn't exist. The whole county was watching, waiting to see if the law would bend for money. Richard called Sophia early the next morning, his voice unusually quiet. Sophia, I'll pay triple the orchard's value and sign a legal agreement never to develop within a mile of you.
His promises are as worthless as the bulldozed trees. I can't trust him.
She drove to the coffee shop where Elena was already waiting, legal files spread across the table.
The clause is bulletproof, Sophia. It's enforceable. You need to file the demand now.
This is it. Once I file, there's no turning back.
An hour later, she walked into the courthouse and filed the formal demand for the full 40 acres. The case was entered on the docket for a preliminary hearing, the legal machinery now grinding forward. Richard's final chance to settle out of court vanished with the echoing stamp of the clerk. The judge's ruling was now the only thing between Sophia and everything Richard owned. The preliminary hearing was standing room only. Sophia and Elena sat at the plaintiff's table, Richard with his high-priced legal team across the aisle. Richard's lawyer argued the clause was unconscionable, a penalty, not a remedy, and unenforceable in a court of equity. The judge asked for the original easement agreement. He put on his glasses and read paragraph 8 aloud into the silent room. In the event of unauthorized destruction of the easement environs, the grantor's entire remaining parcel shall transfer to the grantee. He removed his glasses and looked directly at Richard's table. The courtroom held its breath. The court will hear arguments on enforceability, but I don't see obvious grounds to invalidate a bargained-for clause. I encourage settlement before final ruling.
He's testing the waters. The clause is holding.
A few more days for him to squirm. Then it's final.
Richard's lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently. Richard's face went from pale to ashen. The judge had given them one last chance to avoid a binding ruling. The clock had restarted. When the court reconvened, Richard's legal team had no new argument, only a charged silence. The judge picked up the easement agreement, the clause already highlighted, and read it one final time. This court finds the clause clear, bargained for, and enforceable. The plaintiff's motion for declaratory judgment is granted. He set down the gavel and leaned forward, his next words landing like a verdict's hammer. If the defendant does not execute the transfer deed within 24 hours, this court will order the entire 40-acre parcel transferred to Miss Vance. Richard's composure finally shattered. His lawyer put a hand on his arm, but it was useless.
This is more than I ever imagined. But he brought it on himself. Every acre. Every splintered tree.
It's over, Sophia. All that's left is the paperwork.
The judge struck his gavel once and rose, the courtroom dissolving into low murmurs. Richard had 24 hours to surrender everything he thought he'd stolen. In the courthouse conference room, Richard's lawyer spread his hands, the gesture empty of any strategy. Every angle has been exhausted. No appeal will stop the order. When Sophia entered, Richard stood, his suit wrinkled, the sharpness gone from his eyes. I'll sign the 40 acres, but let me develop half the parcel. I'll make you a partner. Profits, ownership, everything.
The clause says all. Every acre, every tree, every unfinished road. You get nothing.
He stared at her for a long moment, the full arithmetic of his miscalculations settling in.
He finally understands. Every lie, every threat, every bribe, it all led here.
His shoulders dropped. He gave a single, jerky nod. The transfer deed was drawn up overnight. The signing would happen at 9 a.m. sharp. For the first time since the bulldozers rolled, Sophia let herself believe it was really over. Sophia slipped out into the cooling night, the moon laying silver paths between the shattered trees.
Great-grandmother planted these with her own hands. What would she think of me now?
She stopped at a stump that had once been a 100-year-old wine sap. A glint of metal caught her eye.
That's... Mama used to wear these. A charm from her bracelet.
The charm had been lost for decades. A trinket from her great-grandmother's youth.
This land was stolen from our family once before. Now I am taking it back. Not just for me, but for her.
The weight of what she was about to do settled on her shoulders. But so did a fierce conviction.
I am not destroying Richard's career out of vengeance. I am preserving something that was always meant to be.
When she finally turned back toward the farmhouse, her steps were steady, her conscience clear. Tomorrow, she would take everything. Tonight, she grieved, and she let the grief become resolve. At 9 a.m., Elena's office was quiet. Just a table, a document, and the air of a conclusion. Richard's lawyer carried the final deed as if it were a death certificate, placing it on the polished wood. Richard stood over the document, his hand hovering over the pen like a man testing thin ice.
This is the moment. No more words, no more bribes, just ink.
He looked up at Sophia, searching for mercy. She gave him none. The pen scratched against the paper, a sound that ended an empire. Richard Hagen, in a shaky scrawl, signed away 40 acres.
He did it. It's over.
Sophia took the deed, scanning the notarized lines with a steady gaze. The red wax seal of the Vance crest glinted as she folded the parchment and tucked it into her cardigan. Sophia walked out of the office, Richard trailing like a shadow, his empire reduced to the sound of her footsteps. She pulled up to the bulldozer's site. The crew was still there, leaning on the idle machine, confusion on their faces. Sophia stepped out, unfolded the freshly signed deed, and held it high enough for the foreman to read.
This land is mine now, all 40 acres. The deed has been legally transferred.
The foreman's coffee cup froze midair. The crew, the same men who had followed Richard's order, now stared in bewilderment.
One last thing.
From her pocket, she pulled a single key on a plain ring, the metal catching the morning light.
Tear, there's a trailer on the property. You have 30 days to vacate.
Richard stared at the key as if it were a foreign object. His hands shook. He took it without a word. Sophia turned and walked away, the deed folded against her heart. Beyond the idle bulldozer, 40 acres of rolling land stretched before her. Her land now. She walked to the half-acre that had started everything, a muddy scar where the bulldozer had turned his own property to wreckage. Just past that line, unfinished roads and a row of signs still bore his name. She gripped the nearest sign and wrenched it from the soil, the wood groaning as it gave way.
Not his name. Not anymore.
She let it fall and turned, taking in the whole expanse, blank roads, raw earth, and the old orchard at her back.
A blank slate. What do I build here?
The deed was still pressed to her heart, a thin layer of parchment that now outweighed the earth. She walked the perimeter of her new kingdom, her footsteps marking the beginning of something else. By the time she reached the highest point, she was already choosing where the first new tree would go. A few weeks later, the trailer was gone. The dust had settled, and the morning of her first full day as owner arrived clear and quiet. She walked the boundary where the old orchard ended and the new land began. A line once drawn in secrets, now just soil.
This is where the concrete dream died, and where the apple trees will rise again.
In her arms, she carried a young sapling, its roots wrapped in damp burlap, a slender promise of what was to come. It was a graft from the one surviving wine sap, the very variety her great-grandmother had planted a century before.
A direct descendant of the very first tree she brought to this soil.
She knelt at a spot she'd marked days before, just beyond the old boundary where the soil was deep and untouched. The dirt was soft, never sealed by asphalt, never carved by bulldozers. She lowered the roots into the earth, packing the soil gently around the fragile stem. When she stood and brushed the earth from her knees, the first new apple tree of the expanded orchard was rooted in the ground. Months passed, and the land began to remember what it was. The old orchard was filling with new grafts, and on the expansion land, saplings stood in straight rows for the first time. One morning, a letter arrived from Elena. The county recorder's stamp sealed the transfer permanently. The case is closed. Richard's corporation has filed for bankruptcy. The 40 acres are yours, irrevocably.
It's really over. Everything he tried to take is mine, and more.
She took the original deed from her cardigan, the parchment that had started everything. With a simple wooden frame, she mounted it on the kitchen wall, right above the table where Richard had made his first offer.
That morning, I walked out with this in my hands and his whole world crumbled.
The deed changed everything, not because of revenge, but because it proved that sometimes the best weapon is a piece of paper. She touched the glass once, then turned back to the window where the first apples were already blushing red on the new trees. One evening, Sophia walked the mature section of the old orchard, the air cool and smelling of ripening fruit. Near the old winesap stump, a glint of metal caught her eye. Half buried in the soil, she knelt and unearthed a small, rusted metal box. The latch gave way with a soft click. Inside lay a folded slip of paper and a pressed apple blossom, its petals still holding a ghost of color. For the one who holds these trees.
She meant this for me. She knew.
Sophia pressed the blossom and the note to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks.
This is why I fought. Not for revenge, for her, for this land.
The tiny box, buried for decades, had carried her great-grandmother's voice across a century. She stayed there until the stars came out, holding the promise that had always been hers. The following autumn, the orchard was alive with color and laughter. Neighbors who had doubted, Elena with her proud smile, and children who had never seen such trees now ran between them.
This is what victory looks like. No gloating, just growth.
She poured apple cider from a heavy glass jug, the taste of her own land sweet on her tongue.
That night, I thought everything was lost. Now there's more than I ever dreamed.
The deed hung in her kitchen, but out here, the proof was in every branch and every smile. There was no mention of Richard, no speeches about revenge, only the sound of children's laughter and wind through the leaves. Sophia stood at the edge of the gathering, listening to the land that had finally, completely become hers.
The deed changed everything, but it's the trees that keep it.
The last light of the day touched her face, and the orchard hummed with a quiet, enduring peace. When the last neighbor had gone and the tables were cleared, Sophia walked alone toward the highest point of her land. The old orchard stretched behind her like a silent witness, and before her, the new trees rose in soldierly rows. From her cardigan, she drew the folded deed, its red wax seal worn smooth by months near her heart.
In the event of unauthorized destruction, I don't need the rest anymore.
She read the familiar words one last time, the ink that had unmade a man's world.
This paper was my weapon. Now it's just paper.
With careful fingers, she folded the parchment, crease by crease, until it was a neat rectangle against her palm. She tucked it back into her cardigan, over her heart, where it would stay. The deed had changed everything, but the land, this land was the proof that would outlast any document. She stood in the dying light, no longer a woman defending an orchard, but the keeper of a legacy now rooted in more than memory. Clothes on her face, and for the first time since the bulldozers came, a smile without weight. The sun slipped past the horizon, leaving a rim of gold on the hills. The camera pulled back, and the orchard revealed itself. Rows of healthy trees, wind moving through the leaves. Every branch that had survived, every new graft, murmured a quiet truth, not about the man who lost, about the land that won. Sophia's hand rose to her heart, where the deed lay folded. She didn't need to take it out.
This land knows who belongs here.
And the wind answered, a low rustle through the apple leaves, like a promise sealed. The deed changed everything, but it was the land that would keep the story. Slowly, softly, the image faded to black, and the orchard kept growing in the dark.